Todd, would you like to introduce yourself?
Sure. I'm here just to hang out with Jen today. My name is Todd Parks. I am the instructional technology coach for model schools. Before this, I taught math at Fulton Junior High for 18 years, so I know what everyone is going through and the angst that you guys are all feeling going into a new school year that is very uncertain. And I'm going to monitor the chat. I'm going to interrupt Jen, which is my favorite part of doing this. And yeah, hopefully we all learn something that we can take into the school year.
Okay, perfect. Thanks, Todd. Full disclaimer, I'm a former earth science teacher. So again, veteran teacher in the classroom. We are all here to help support you with your needs. So we're going to get started today and talking about interactive slide decks. So kind of the idea behind this is that we are creating a lesson package for students to complete inside of Google Slides. Google Slides, in my opinion, other people's opinion possibly, is a little bit more of a powerful tool for students to use for the creative aspect of their learning and showcasing their learning in a different way. I like this tool better compared to like Google Docs, for example, because there's more manipulatives and it's easier for students to add text to certain places and things like that. So kind of today is a little show and tell of why I love Google Slides to use for a learning package. So as I'm going through this, kind of think of if you're been strictly a Google Doc user or a Microsoft Word user for students to be interactive digitally, think about how you can change your Google Docs to just be a Google Slides presentation instead. Because again, I personally feel like Google Slides is an easier tool for students to manipulate and to keep track of their learning and to figure out, you know, where do I have to be when I have to be there to learn what I need to learn. So the first thing that I'm going to showcase today is kind of twofold. This is an agenda, and a lot of feedback that I got from students and parents that I met with and teachers was that students were kind of confused as to what they needed to do, sometimes on the day, sometimes within the actual lesson itself. So the first idea that I'm going to promote is the idea of using an agenda within the slide deck. So slide decks can be like a hyperdoc where it's a lesson package that they're working through, like a whole series of lessons to master the learning, or it could be presented as an organizational tool where they're using the slide deck to complete activities each day. So maybe slide number 3 is Monday, slide number 4 is Tuesday, slide number 5 is Wednesday, so on and so forth. So there's a lot of different models of lesson packages and how we can share them with our students. But all lesson packages, in my opinion, would be helpful if students had an agenda to reference as they're working through their lesson, whether it be a day or week or 2 weeks, a module, whatnot. So this is a general format for an agenda. This is essentially our agenda for today's learning as well. And you're going to notice that 1, 3, and 5 currently have these quick links on it. So when I, as a user, hover over the top of the link and I click on it, it is going to show me a hyperlink directly to slide 3, which is embedded video. Same thing for utilize the text box. When I hover over and click on it, it gives me a quick link directly to slide 7. So when I click on these links, it quickly moves me through the slide presentation. So I think this tool is really beneficial for students, especially if their Google slide deck has multiple slides. So to create a link to other slides in an agenda, we're going to use what's called the hyperlink icon. So to do this, I'm going to do a double click over the word with my mouse. A double click will highlight it. And I'm going to use the link icon from the toolbar at the top. And it's also, you can see when I hover over the top, it tells you that the keyboard command is Control-K. So as you become more proficient with these keyboard commands, I strongly encourage the use of them because it makes the creation of these lesson packages that much faster for us as the teachers that are trying to create them for our students. So when I select the link icon, I have a couple options here. I can paste in a link from an external website. I can select slides in this presentation, or I could type in a word or phrase and it will automatically link to the Google search engine. But for the purposes of this agenda, I would like to link to slides in this presentation. So I'm going to click this down arrow next to slides in this presentation, and I'm going to just scroll through to find where I want to embed the audio file, which is slide 5. And then I select apply. So this now has generated a quick link to the audio file slide, which is slide number 5. So again, I'm highlighting over the word or the phrase. A double click highlights a word, and a triple click highlights the entire sentence. So I'm highlighting the entire sentence here. I'm using the keyboard command Control K to access the link. I'm selecting slides in this presentation. And now I'm looking for my set a background image title. So even though this is something that I'm showcasing first, this is something that you would do last in your slide presentation. You may create your agenda and kind of lay out the flow of your lesson, but you need to have all of your slides established before you can insert these quick links. So even though it shows up first in your slide deck, it's actually going to be the last thing that you do. From this page, so taking away like the two learning pieces of learning for this slide here is the utilization of the agendas, and then how to create a hyperlink in a Google slide. And we're hyperlinking using either the link icon here at the top, or we are using the keyboard command Control K. So next, what I want to talk about is embedding a video. So one of the things that I have found that has happened in my role as an instructional technology integration specialist is I'm starting to create a lot of how-to videos as a way to actually respond to emails. So this idea of creating videos for people to watch and learn from can kind of stem and reach into our classroom of maybe our direct instruction becomes a flipped instructional video for students that they can watch if we're in a situation where we're distance learning. A flipped instructional video can also be used in the classroom using the flipped instructional model for classroom instruction. But the whole idea of creating these instructional videos, I think is really taken off. So if I have created an instructional video, I think one of the best ways to get it to the students is to present it to them in a lesson package using Google Slides. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to embed a video to this slide from YouTube. So traditionally in the past, or if we're using a Google Doc, for example, we would have to link the video to YouTube. And we all know that sometimes that is a recipe for disaster because as soon as the YouTube tab is open, the students are lost in that YouTube sphere of autoplay and ads and, you know, sometimes inappropriate ads and sometimes inappropriate videos and things like that. So inside of Google Slides, we can, it's called embedding the video directly from YouTube or from our Google Drive so that the students don't have to leave the slide deck to watch the video. So again, like I said, I'm a former earth science teacher. I'm going to look for a video about ESRT page 11, which is the P and S wave chart. I'm a fan of the Homics Earth Science Department YouTube channel because the reference table hasn't changed. So as I'm searching directly from Google, again, I'm going to insert video, and then I'm using the Google search, which links directly to YouTube, and I'm just typing in some keywords or phrases of what I'm looking for my video. I can also search a video using a direct URL, but again, this has to be a video that's housed on YouTube. This is only integrating from YouTube or, as your third choice shows, from your Google Drive. So if you're currently making your own instructional videos and you're using Screencastify, you're using Screencast-O-Matic, you're using WeVideo, if you're a Mac user and you're using QuickTime, all of these videos need to be like housed or saved in your Google Drive first in order to embed them into your slide deck. So I'm just going to head back here. When I select my video that's been embedded, you'll notice that I have this format options that come up on the right-hand side. So this is kind of an automatic. And this is essentially where you're going to set the parameters for your video. The thing that I really like about embedding the videos is that it doesn't bring in, you know, sometimes we have those 5 or 10-second ads on the actual YouTube page. It doesn't bring those ads in. It also allows us to create a starting point and an ending point for the video. So for example, this video is 7 minutes, 11 seconds long. Maybe I only want my students to watch from minute 2 to minute 4:33 as an example. So I can put in and I can control the exact starting and ending point for the students for this video because, again, it's embedded into my Google slide here. I'm just going to exit out of this. And now I just want to show you kind of the same thing, but I'm going to link it to show the difference between these two. So when I click on this as a user or a viewer, I can click play. And it plays again right inside of my slide. It's starting at the 2-minute mark and it'll end at 4:33. I can pause it. After it's been embedded, I can access YouTube directly by clicking on the YouTube icon on the video. When I click on that, it opens that external site. I'm just going to pause this. I also have this option here to enlarge the video, right, to make it full screen. So if, you know, you're looking at this right now and you're saying, wow, that looks really tiny for someone to watch what's going on in this chart, absolutely it is. But when I select the full screen option, it literally makes the video full screen. I can push play. And now we're going through and I'm watching the presentation. I can use the keyboard command escape to get away from the video, or I can use the exit full screen in the bottom right-hand corner. So just using that little tool is
Jen, we got a question.
Great thing for us to use so that, you know, we can see what's happening in the video. Go ahead, Todd.
Yeah. Is there a way to force students to watch the video completely before they're able to move on to the next slide?
That's a great question.
I don't believe there is a way to force.
Yeah, that's where I'm leaning also. I am not familiar with that as being an option inside of Google Slides. There is a, I don't know, is it called a program, an application called Edpuzzle that does allow that. It is what we call freemium. So there is a free version and there is a paid version of that program, which does allow for that specific feature. However, as the disclaimer, you need to contact your district's technology department or your district's data protection privacy officer to ask them if you are allowed to use that because it collects student data in regards to EdLaw 2D. So that's kind of a really long answer to, you can't do it in Google right now, but there are other external applications that you can use. But if you are planning to use those, make sure you get permission from your district first so that you can be compliant. Todd, anything else before I go on to linking the video?
So it just says, we just had one come in. So students can still click and navigate to YouTube from the embedded video.
Correct. It's not blocking them from the YouTube site. It's just providing the video easily for them to watch the video and move to the next slide.
Yeah. I've played around a little bit with safeu.net, I believe it is, and you can take the link and basically create that keeps them off of the YouTube piece a little bit more.
Yeah. So
that might help. I don't know.
Yeah. So definitely play around with it. I mean, it's not a one size fits all by any means, but for lower elementary and lower middle school, I think that this is a great way to kind of try to keep the students like laser focused and not having those distractors of going to the external site. So speaking of the external YouTube site, here's that site. I typically recommend that we copy and paste or copy from the URL address. If you use the share icon down here, a lot of Wi-Fi filters block out these bit.lys that occur. So I always recommend copying from the URL, and I'm going to link it here where I have it like kind of put in. I'm using, again, I double clicked to highlight the whole word. I'm using Control K, and then I'm using Control V, and I'm applying that link. So now here's the same video just given to the students in 2 different ways. This video is embedded on the left-hand side where the students can just click play, watch the video right inside of the slide deck, or if they're given a hyperlink to click on, it will take them away from that slide deck just as it did now to the YouTube where they might get distracted by, you know, this autoplay that is automatically always toggled on. So there's a little bit of insights about embedding a video and the difference between embedding a video versus linking a video. Todd, do we have any questions about video before we move on to our next topic?
I think we've covered them all. We're doing well.
Okay. Our next one is embedding an audio file. So I think that this is a really beneficial tool for K through 4th grade teachers. I think that, you know, especially because that's the prime age of, we have emerging readers, we have readers at grade level and everything in between there, right? So embedding an audio file that gives the directions for the students is really great. Yes, someone just said, and ESL. Yes, so your ELL students, students that have IEPs and 504s, being able to push a button and have their teacher read the directions to them without physically being in the room, I think is a game changer for a lot of students. Not that this doesn't need to be used like for a 12th grade level of, you know, an AP honors student, but just having that ability of not having to read the screen without an add-on is a really nice feature. The other reason why I like this is because, you know, the research has shown that students, even if they're learning digitally, students want to see their teachers' faces and they want to hear their teachers' voices. So there's definitely something to the auditory senses of when they're hearing their teacher read directions to them or read a passage to them versus just reading it on your own. So this is a little bit of an in-depth process, and the directions are listed for you on slide number 5. So I'm going to showcase the use of the website Vocaroo, but you can really use any audio recording piece of software, right? If you have a Mac and you've got QuickTime, if you have an Apple iPhone, you can use the Voice Memos app on there. It comes standard. But the idea is step 1, you have to record your audio file first. Which to some people is going to say this is a burden because there's programs out there like Nearpod that have that feature embedded right into it, right? But Google's working towards these things. So step 1 is record your audio file first. Once you have your audio file recorded, you're going to upload that file to Google Drive and change the share settings to anyone with the link can view or, you know, essentially hear. And then once those 3 steps have occurred, we can then embed the audio file onto the slide. So I'm going to showcase what that looks like for you. I'm going to head over to vocaroo.com. Vocaroo is an external website. It is a voice recording service, and that is all it is. It essentially is EdLaw 2D compliant because it's not collecting any information from me or my students. So I can use this, you know, and not necessarily be worried about it. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to pull this over so I can access the passage that I have on slide 6. And I'm just going to quickly record the passage that I have for students. To record on Vocaroo.com, you just hit the red start button. Venus has a beautiful name and is the second planet from the sun. It's terribly hot, even hotter than Mercury, and its atmosphere is extremely poisonous. It's the second brightest natural object in the night sky after the moon. So then when I hit stop, I'm going to select save and share. I'm not using this external site here because when students click on it, they will be taken to the Vocaroo site, and I want them to stay inside of the presentation. So I'm going to ignore this, even though it's tempting, and I'm going to select download. When I select the download button, it downloads locally to my computer. And now my next step is to upload it to my Google Drive account. Before I upload it, I want to talk about the idea of having a media file inside of Google Drive. So my media file is the location where I'm putting all of my recordings that I make in, Vocaroo or other sites like this. By creating my own media folder, I can set the share settings to the folder so that anything that I place inside of this folder can automatically be open to all viewers. If I didn't do this and I was just uploading it to Google Drive, I would have to change the share settings of each individual file, which is labor intensive and it's time consuming. And that's not what we have right now. We do not have time on our side. So to make it quick, fast, and easy, I'm creating a folder. I'm going to right click over the folder and I'm going to select share. And down here, I'm going to change it from my local domain, yours will say whatever your school district is, to anyone with the link. And I'm going to confirm that it's viewer. And then I'm going to select done. So now you'll see that there's this little silhouette inside of the folder. So that means that anything that gets put inside of this folder will take on the share settings of the folder itself. So this is a time saver if we are going to be using Vocaroo, a lot. So I'm going to just open up my folder and I'm going to click and drag my file inside of it. So it's now uploaded and it's complete. It's Vocaroo the 12th. If I want to rename it, maybe that's helpful, Venus Facts. So this is now completed the second step, right? You only have to set your folder settings the first time. Once you go forward, it's going to be really fast because you can just record your file, download it, throw it in this folder, you're good to go. So now I'm going to navigate back over to my slide deck. And I'm going to insert my audio file from Google Drive. I'm going to select Insert, Audio. It's accessing my drive. And because this is prompted based on most recent, my Venus Facts is right here for me. So I can highlight it in blue and then hit the select button. And this is now creating this icon here, the play icon. And I can make this play icon a little bit larger. I can move it anywhere around on the screen that I want it to be. This is a consideration. Like, this is not something that we think about necessarily, but from the viewer standpoint, wherever you put this, you want to put it so that this is not covering your text, okay? Because when the students access this, they are going to, this is going to show up exactly like this for them. So for example, if I put this here, like up here at the top, this circle or this long oval, this ellipse, is going to be covering the passage. So if I'm anticipating that students are hopefully following along, I need to make sure to put my audio file somewhere so that it's not covering up the words when it's selected. Right, so if I leave it here, it's just covering up the picture. It's not affecting the words that I have here. So that's a consideration. We also have some format options for our audio. You can start the play on a click, or you can start the play automatically. I really think it depends on age level and student ability of which one is better. You know your students the best of what they can handle. And then you also have this option of looping the audio, which means it just repeats. It continuously repeats until you go to the next slide. So that was kind of a lot. There's a lot of steps to it. Again, the directions are on slide 5. Once you do it, 2 or 3 times, you're going to become proficient, and then it's going to go a lot faster, especially if you're utilizing, this suggestion of like a media folder or a Vocaroo folder where your share settings are set to open for all. Okay, Todd, how are we doing with the chat?
All right,
Okay.
Jen, we have some questions. Yeah, I was just going to stop you. The first one, could you just go back over shared settings? It seems like some people missed it with folders inside a drive.
So inside of your drive, you have all of your folders here. Anything that has a silhouette of a person inside of the folder means that other people besides myself have access to it. So for example, like my ISTE folder right here, it does not have a silhouette, so nobody has access to it. That's private to me. But like this digital portfolio one, other people have access to. My media 2, my media 1. So I'm doing a right mouse click over the top of the folder, and I'm selecting share. And inside of the share, you can type a specific person that you're sharing the folder to, or you can change it so that anyone has access. Only people in your domain have access, or it's completely restricted to all users. So I recommend choosing anyone with the link, and then that's a viewer. And especially because sometimes we have students that are logging in with devices that are shared at home, and multiple accounts signed in. Sometimes it just triggers the wrong account, and then they don't have access to it, and then frustration occurs. Hopefully that covers that. Other questions, Todd?
Yeah, one other question. Yeah, if they forget to change the shared setting on a file inside the folder, will it still be viewable because the folder setting was anyone with the link?
Say it one more time. If it's inside the folder, it's not, it'll have those share settings.
Right. If it's inside the folder, it will have the shared settings. Correct.
Does that answer that question?
I think that's what you were getting at there.
If your folder share settings are open, everything inside of the share setting inside of the folder will be open.
The other one that we have is if we're recording audio on an Apple or a Mac with voice memo or QuickTime, will students be able to hear it on their Chromebooks without an issue?
Yes, because you have to upload it to Google Drive first before it can be embedded into the Google slide deck. It doesn't matter the device that you record the file on, the type of device. What matters is that you upload it to Google Drive first and then embed it onto the slide deck. Yep, we have to follow these steps. Order of operations in computer and everything really matters. PEMDAS is not just a thing for math. Like, it's real life for computers. Record the audio file first. That was a math joke for you, Todd. Record the audio file first, upload it to Google Drive, check the share settings, and then embed the file onto the slide. And we're embedding, again, using the insert button, insert audio. Okay. I'm getting a little worried about time. We're only on number 3. Okay, so number 3 is utilizing the text box. One of the things that I love about Google Slides is the idea of being able to put a text box anywhere on the slide for you to either give a piece of information to the students or for the students to use interactively where they're answering questions along the way. This is a little bit more challenging in a Google Doc, for example, because the only way I have figured out how to do it is to use a table. And Google Docs just aren't as pretty as this nice background that I have selected from Slides Go. So I'm going to showcase this question on slide 8. This is a Earth Science Regents question, came right from the Regents. And the students have to reference this image that comes from their Earth Science reference table in order to answer this question. So I am using this Google slide or this slide deck as an interactive tool where students are answering the question right on the slide. So in order to insert a text box, right, because my prompt is type your answer in the text box below, I am selecting the T from the toolbar. When I select the T from the toolbar, I get these little crosshairs and I can draw in a text box of any size for a rectangle or a square. It's currently highlighted in blue, so I have the ability to move this around on the screen using my mouse or the up, down, left, right arrow. I also have the ability right now to change some of the features in the box. If I click away from this, you'll notice that it looks like my box has disappeared. However, when I click back in this area, the box reappears. So one of the things that we may want to consider is changing what's called the border weight of this text box. The border weight icon is up here in the toolbar. When you hover over these, right, it tells you what it is. So we're looking for the border weight. When I click on it, we have options between 1 and 24. And basically how this works is the larger the number, the thicker the border. So I'm going to select a 4. And now that puts in this nice border around the text box. So students have that quick visual, this is where I have to answer this question. And then when you're grading it and you're giving them feedback, you know exactly where to look for their answer. Because that's like the worst part of grading digitally is like trying to find the student's answer. So give them a text box to answer their questions in. So I'm going to select the text box again, and I'm going to just head back up here to my tools. The other option that we have is the style of the border. Right now it's a solid line, but I could select that I want it to be some dots. So that's going to change how that looks. Inside, I could change any of these. I can also change the border color. So if I wanted it to be a little bit more in line with the theme that I'm using, I could change it so that the border of my text box is pink, for example. The last manipulative that I can do for this is I can change the fill color of the box. So again, I'm selecting the text box. The tools for the text box are here across the top. We have fill color, we have border color, we have the border weight, and we have the border like style of line around the outside. The text box is really great. You can put it anywhere you want. You can put as many as you want on here. I'm just going to delete this for a second, and now I'm going to talk about a shape, because all of these shapes that are embedded into the toolbar in Google Slides, these are all also text boxes. So under the shape, I could select any shape that I wanted to. Maybe I want to select the cloud, and I can draw a cloud in as the text box where the student answers the question. The shapes default, I believe they default to just gray. So if it's not what you like, you can certainly come up and change it to a different color, maybe so it's more in line with the theme. You can also change the border color. Maybe I want the border to be purple, and maybe I want it to be a little bit thicker so that it like looks cool. So now when the student comes to this question in the slide deck, they can double click on the text box to type their answer. Additionally, you can change the formatting of their font here if you'd like ahead of time so that it is large for the students or for you to see as the teacher, right? So if I'm like skimming through this, I can quickly see the student's answer. And you can set that ahead of time if you want to. You can change the font style. You can change the size of the font for the student. Let's see. Just like that. So that's the use of the text box. Slide number 9 is showcasing the use of a text box to label the parts of this diagram. This is from second grade CKLA workbook. So I took just a screenshot or an image or a snip of the packet the PDF packet that I had of this lesson, and I pasted the image onto the slide. I've given the students some directions. Double click on the text box to type in your answer. So again, I just selected the text box. I drew it in. I changed the border weight so that it's something that can be seen. And then as a quick way to do this, I don't necessarily have to draw 5 separate boxes. I only have to draw one and change it to what I want it to be, like all the formats, change the border weight, change the font if I want to, change the font size. And then as long as it's highlighted in blue, I can select it and make a copy using Control-C, and then use Control-V to paste it and move the boxes around where they need to go. Another option for this type of assignment would be to have the text boxes on the far right side and have the names of the parts of this ant or insect already here. And then it becomes a click and drag activity for the students instead of a double click and type. Depends on how long you want the students to work on the activity and their age level, right? Typing is a skill that's a challenge for younger students. So if clicking, click, hold, and drag to move your labels in might be a little bit faster than asking them to type in their answers. So that's another idea. Number 10 is just showcasing a text box using a number bond. Again, it's just using images that I took from the Eureka math worksheet. So I took a snip or an image or a screenshot of the question. I pasted it onto the slide, and then I just used the shape of a circle to draw a circle over the top of the number bond. Make it just a little bit bigger. I can change the fill color to this light green. And then right now, my font size is a little bit small for the age of my students, so I just want to make it a little bit bigger. And then I can just check it out. Yep, that looks good. And then I can copy and paste to get the second one for the one on the far side. Okay, so let's take a break. Todd, how are we doing with the chat? Anything that we need to address to the group?
I think I've covered most of it. We talked about penning on top of Google Slides. Unfortunately, that's not an option.
I recommend Jamboard for that.
Jamboard, I said
Yeah.
Cami. There's a lot of different tools as far as stylus work is concerned. This just came in. What's the advantages to using the text box tool versus embedding a Google form? If you can embed a Google form. I've never seen a Google form embedded. We can link to it.
Yeah, you have to link it, right? So this is just a vocabulary reference, embedding a form versus linking a form. You can certainly link a Google form for the students to do. It just depends on what you want the actual activity to be for the students. If you want to use a Google form that has automatic grading features, absolutely. But maybe a kindergartner or first grader may not be able to use that tool yet. It just might be out of their skill set at this time.
Yeah, everything else I think we've covered. They were talking about, can we open up this slide deck with Pear Deck and Nearpod, of course, and give it even more functionality.
Yeah, just make sure your district is using it. It has a contract in place for EdLaw 2D with those two tools.
All right, bring her home.
Okay, so we're on slide 11. We're gonna set a background image. So before I get started, I have done this presentation 3 times in the last 2 weeks, and it has not worked. So hopefully it works today. I don't know if it's a glitch. I don't know if it's my personal computer. So we're just gonna see what happens, but either way, I'm gonna give you the steps to do this. So to set a background image, what that means is that we're locking the image in place for students so they can't accidentally delete things. So for example, if I send this to a student through Google Classroom as make a copy for all, the student accesses their personal copy of this. We've all had students that accidentally delete things, and they can't get them back for whatever reason. Please, please, please start teaching your students to use the undo button for mistakes or Control-Z when they get to the point when they start using keyboard commands, like around 3rd grade. Start teaching them that anything that they do accidentally can most likely be fixed by hitting the undo button immediately. Please start teaching them young, right? So if I accidentally delete this, I can click the undo button to get it back. So setting a background image is going to create the slide so that this image and these directions cannot be clicked on. They're literally set as the background of the slide. So to do this, I'm going to come up here to File. I'm going to select Download, and I'm going to download it as a JPEG image. So it's downloading this singular individual slide here as an image to my computer. So now I'm going to insert a slide where I want this to go. I'm going to change my layout just to blank. Okay, may or may not be a necessity. And I'm going to select background here from the toolbar. I can also get to the background by doing a right mouse click and select change background. I'm going to select choose image, and then I can try to drag and drop it, or I can select browse. Oh, it worked. And then I'm going to select done. So now, as I'm clicking over the top of this, I cannot highlight any of the words. I can't highlight on the picture. I can't delete it. I could delete the slide, but hopefully that doesn't happen. So instead of having slide number 9, where this is now movable for students, I now have slide 12, which is an immovable background. So students can't accidentally delete that diagram. And then from here, I would add in whatever my interaction is. Do I want to have that text box for the students with, got to change the border weight a little bit so they can see it, copy and paste it, move it to my location where I want it to go? Or are we going to have, like a word bank over here on the side with it already typed in where the students have to click, hold and drag it over to a different location? Obviously, that would change my directions here. So setting a background image is really great. It does have a couple steps to it. I'll run through the steps one more time. So to set a background image, I go to the slide that's kind of like my template, my background essentially. I'm going to select File, Download as a JPEG so that it downloads locally to my computer. I'm going to insert a new slide, select background, and then select the image from the computer. Interesting. I think it didn't work because of that. There we go. So the last thing is like building in some actual tasks, some interaction for the students to do. So on slide 15, I'm just showcasing the use of a 10 frame for math. I've created the slide, so I have the question at the top. I want the students to click, hold, and drag the circles to complete, this math problem. I've created the 10 frame by using a table option. So I'm selecting Insert. I'm going to Table, and I'm selecting a 2x5. It kind of comes in a little weird when you insert it originally. So I'm just going to resize it to my liking. And then I'm going to change the border color so that I can see it a little bit better. So again, that's just the pencil from the toolbar. Maybe I'd want it to be black. Maybe I need to change the thickness of it so it really stands out or whatnot, so that I can see what this looks like, right? And I can either, replace this one or use this one, like whatever one I want. But just to show you, how did I get the table on here? Insert table. Most things that we need are under the insert icon. So then I need to create some sort of shape to use. I already have some circles drawn, but you can use any of the shapes here. You could use an image of an emoji, right? So we just need to have some sort of shape. So maybe I want to use a heart, or maybe I want to use these circles. So you just have to draw it once and then use Control C and Control V to make multiple copies of your shape because I need at least 10. And then I like to grab them all at the same time, right? So I've got these hearts stacked up. I'm going to click and hold on the outside of them and just drag my cursor over the top to highlight all, I think there's 5 here. And what I want is I want to stack these up so they're nice and neat and they're stacked on top of each other on the screen. So to do that, I highlight all of them at the same time. And then I come up here to our toolbar and I select Arrange. And then I'm going to select Align Center. So this is aligning them based on their center point. And then I'm going to align them based on the middle. And this now stacks all of those hearts on top of each other. So for the activity, if I have to show the sum of 7 plus 2 as a student, I can click on the heart, hold with the keyboard, with the mouse, and drag it to the appropriate box. So again, I'm clicking on the outside of my cluster to try to grab as much as I can. See, I grabbed the I grabbed the wording there, the little blue box. So let me just move this up a little bit. I'm going to click, hold, and drag over the top of the circles. I'm going to select Arrange, Align, Center, and then Arrange, Align, Middle. And that stacks all of those circles on top. So ideally, what we could do is create the base of this slide, and then you could duplicate this slide and just change the question at the top, right? If we were giving them some of the practice that they may need for the 10 frame. I often get questions about programs to use for timelines. Inside of Google Slides, we have a timeline option. If you select Insert and you select Diagram, it's going to open up the diagram options over here. So we have, some fancy charts. We have hierarchy where you can use that, and the students, it's all manipulative, so the students can double click and fill in their own. Timeline, a process, showing a relationship, showing some sort of cycle over time. So when I select timeline as an example, it gives me, I think there's 4 or 5 in here, maybe 6, of different timeline options that students can use. We have the option between 4 and 6 dates. If you need more than that, you can insert the image twice, right? Like if you needed 8, you could do 2 4s. These are all interactive, so you can delete what you don't need. So I can select 4, and then I can also select a color that kind of goes with the theme of my slide if I want to. So maybe I like this one that looks like bubbles. So when I click on it, it inserts it onto the slide. And then you notice like this is really distracting the background that I've chosen. So I can go to my layout and choose something that's not as distracting. And now I can just click here and type in, the dates. I think we all just want it to be 2021 at this point. And then, the titles of things and what they need. So, right, like these are all, if I needed to copy this and add like another set of whatnot on here, I can. So this is a nice feature. The last option that I have for interaction is just, using some of the tools that are here. So on the image below, label the Earth by drawing an arrow to the corresponding planet. They're drawing an arrow using the line tool. They're not physically drawing it with their hand like we talked about. Like I know Todd's a really big fan of the Cami app. I'm a big fan of Jamboard. So if you're looking for students to actually draw on the slides, they can't do that in the Chrome version of Google Slides, right? The Chrome web version. But they can come to the line tool, they can find an arrow, and they could draw their arrow from the word Earth to the planet. And then they could change the color of the arrow. They can change the style of the arrow so that, it's just a different way. So when you're thinking about what types of interactions can the students do, pointing out something, drawing a box around a word if they're reading a passage, or if you want them to annotate a passage, use a box feature for that. Just different things that you can do inside of Google Slides to make it easier for your students to manipulate things digitally. Again, kind of wrapping this all up, once you have all of your slides created, then you can go back and create your agenda slide. This one is just showcasing, right, like the day of the week. If you want them to do a certain slide on a specific day, you can highlight over the date and use that Control K to link it to other locations on the slide deck, and so on and so forth. My last ideas for you is to use a how-to video to showcase to the students exactly what you want them to do for the task. So we've been running, countless online classes this summer and whatnot, and we're not always available for webinars, for these online classes, or, just in general, we may not be available because of our schedules. So we've been really utilizing the idea of creating these how-to videos of, just this slide deck itself, of running through the directions just like we would in class. Distance learning and learning using these digital tools is challenging. But remember, we need to format these lessons in a similar way that we would in class. We still have to have lesson objectives. We still have to provide students with the directions, right? We always assume students don't know stuff in class. So we should assume that they don't know how to use these tools on the computer. So we do have to take the time to teach them some of the tools. And by using a how-to video, right, of me showcasing to the students exactly how I want them to complete this number bond, can be a game changer for the student, or maybe for the helper that's at home. If you were wondering how I got this fancy purple cosmic background, I got this template from Slides Go. So Slides Go and Slides Mania are both two websites that have free interactive downloads for PowerPoint and Google Slides. So they're essentially templates. So these are both quick links. So if you click on the icon, it will take you to the website for you to access, different templates of different things. So that's where this came from, because we know like Google Slides doesn't have that many in there. When you are borrowing templates from Slides Go or Slides Mania, you do need to credit where you're getting your resources from. So that's why slide 23 and 24 is part of this slide deck. I have to give credit to Slides Go for using this template.